There are two kinds of gardeners: the kind that spends their summer on their knees, pulling the same weeds that came back last week, and the kind that figured out you can make the soil itself fight back. I want to talk about the second kind, because once you understand how ground cover perennials work, you stop battling your garden and start letting it do the work for you. In this video, I'm walking you through 15 ground cover perennials that spread and choke out weeds, not by accident, but by design. These plants grow low and wide, they block the light weeds need to germinate, and they come back stronger every single year. No replanting, no endless pulling, just a garden that handles itself. Stick around through number 12, and that one surprises most people. It's not what you'd expect, and it's one of the most effective weed suppressors on this entire list. If you're new here, this channel is about low-maintenance perennials that make your yard look like you put in way more effort than you did. Subscribe and drop a comment telling me your biggest garden frustration. We reply to every single one. Before we get into the plants, let me explain why this actually works, because it's not magic, it's just biology. Weeds need two things to germinate: bare soil and light. Ground cover perennials take both away. They spread horizontally across the surface, shade the ground underneath, and crowd out anything trying to grow up through them. The University of Minnesota Extension calls this competitive exclusion. You're essentially replacing the weed habitat with something you chose to put there. And once the ground cover establishes, the weeds have nowhere left to go. The plants on this list were selected based on three things: how aggressively they spread, how reliably they suppress weeds, and how well they perform in real American gardens, from Zone 3 in Minnesota to Zone 9 in Texas. Let's start with the dense mats. These are the heavy hitters. Plant 1, creeping thyme, Thymus sapillum. Zones 4 to 9. Spreads 12 to 18 inches wide per plant. This is the one I'd start with if you've never tried ground cover before. Creeping thyme grows flat, we're talking 2 to 3 inches off the ground, and it forms such a tight mat that nothing underneath it survives. In June, it covers itself in tiny pink and purple blooms. After that, it goes back to doing its main job, which is choking everything else out. It handles foot traffic better than almost any other plant on this list, which makes it perfect for pathways, rock gardens, or the edges of your driveway where nothing else wants to grow. It's drought tolerant once established, which means you're not adding a maintenance task. You're removing one. Plant 2, Ajuga, one of the most adaptable ground covers in North America. Ajuga is what you plant in the spots where other things give up. Dry shade under a big tree? Ajuga. Compacted soil along a fence line? Ajuga. It spreads by runners, horizontal stems that root as they go, and it fills in fast. The foliage is a deep bronze purple, and it's striking enough that people will actually ask what it is. In spring, it sends up short spikes of blue-violet flowers that pollinators love. The Missouri Botanical Garden lists it as one of the best options for difficult sites, specifically for its ability to naturalize and suppress weeds without intervention. One note: Ajuga spreads enthusiastically, so give it a defined edge or let it have a bed to itself. It plays nicely until it doesn't. Plant 3, Sedum. Sedum gets lumped in with succulents and people overlook it as a weed suppressor, but it's one of the best on this list for hot, dry, rocky spots. The stems root wherever they touch soil, and it forms a thick mat that blocks light at the surface level. Dragon's blood is the variety most gardeners go for. The leaves turn a deep red bronze in cooler temperatures, and the summer flowers are a vivid crimson. USDA trial data shows it performs consistently across a wide range of conditions, which is exactly what you want in a plant you're relying on to do a job. If you have a slope that erodes every time it rains, this is your answer. Sedum holds soil and blocks weeds at the same time. Plant 4, Sweet Woodruff, Galium odoratum. Zones 4 to 8. Dry shade under a mature tree is one of the hardest spots in any American garden. The roots compete, the light barely gets through, and most plants just give up. Sweet Woodruff doesn't. It spreads by underground rhizomes into a soft, low carpet of world green leaves, and in spring it covers itself in small white, star-shaped flowers. It smells faintly of fresh hay when you brush against it. One of those unexpected details that makes people lean down and actually touch the plant. The Ladybird Johnson Wildflower Centre notes it's particularly effective at naturalising under deciduous trees, where it takes advantage of spring light before the canopy fills in. Plant 5. Pachysandra. Pachysandra terminalis. Zones 4 to 9. If you live in the northeast or the mid-Atlantic and you've driven through any established neighbourhood, you've already seen Pachysandra. It's the deep green carpet you see under trees everywhere. Dense, evergreen and completely maintenance-free once it's in. It spreads slowly in the first year, but accelerates after that, and once it's established, it's genuinely self-sustaining. Penn State Extension recommends it as one of the top performers for dense shade, specifically because it holds through winter and re-emerges without intervention in spring. Plant it 6 to 8 inches apart, mulch once to help it establish, and then walk away. That's the entire maintenance plan. Plant 6. Epimedium species. Zones 4 to 8. This one doesn't get nearly enough attention. Epimedium, sometimes called barrenwort or bishop's hat, is possibly the most drought-tolerant shade plant in existence, and it's a legitimate weed suppressor. The leaves are tough and leathery, the plant stays low, and it spreads by rhizomes into a dense ground cover that shades out weeds effectively. The Royal Horticultural Society has trialled it extensively and consistently, rates it among the best performers for dry shade. The conditions most plants simply refuse. The spring flowers are delicate and unusual. Tiny heart-shaped petals in yellow, purple or white depending on the variety. It looks ornamental and performs like a workhorse. Quick pause. If this is useful to you, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And tell me in the comments, which part of your yard gives you the most trouble? I read every comment and I respond. Plant 7. Creeping juniper. Juniperus horizontalis. Zones 3 to 9. Spreads 4 to 8 feet wide. If you have a slope, a hillside or a bank that erodes every spring, creeping juniper is the plant that stops it. It's evergreen. It's cold hardy down to zone 3, and once it establishes it spreads laterally across the ground in a dense mat that nothing grows through. It handles full sun and poor soil, which is exactly what you find on most slopes where grass won't grow and weeds keep taking over. The USDA has documented it as one of the most effective erosion control plants for residential landscapes in the northern half of the country. The blue chip variety is a good starting point. Compact, blue-green in summer, turning a purplish bronze in winter. It looks intentional even when you're not doing anything to it. Plant 8. Crown vetch, Coronilla varia. Zones 3 to 9. Fast spreader. Give it space. Crown vetch is in a different category from everything else on this list. This is the aggressive option. Once it's in, it spreads fast and wide, and it doesn't ask permission, which is exactly why you want it on a difficult slope or a roadside bank where nothing else will grow. The root system is deep and extensive, which means it holds soil even on steep grades. The pink-purple flowers it produces through the summer are attractive enough that it looks intentional rather than neglected. The National Invasive Species Information Centre flags it as potentially invasive in some states, particularly in the Northeast and Pacific Northwest, so check your local extension service before planting. In the right location, it's one of the most effective weed suppressors on this list. In the wrong one, you'll spend years trying to remove it. Plant 9. Liriope. Liriope muscari. Zones 5 to 10. A southern staple that works nationwide. Liriope is the grass-like ground cover you see lining driveways and walkways from Atlanta to Los Angeles. It's tough, it's evergreen in warmer zones, and it suppresses weeds by forming a dense clump that expands outward year after year. It's one of the few plants on this list that handles both sun and deep shade, poor soil and clay, dry conditions and occasional flooding. Missouri Botanical Garden calls it one of the most adaptable perennials for American gardens. And the numbers back that up. It's the top-selling perennial ground cover at most big box retailers for a reason. Plant 10. Creeping phlox, Phlox subulata. Zones 3 to 9. In spring, creeping phlox covers itself so completely in flowers that you can barely see the foliage underneath. Pink, white, lavender, purple. It cascades over rocks and walls and spills down slopes in a sheet of colour that stops people in their tracks. After bloom, it goes back to being a dense evergreen mat that stays 4 to 6 inches tall and shades out weeds effectively all season. Penn State Extension cites it as one of the best spring flowering ground covers for the eastern US, particularly for slopes and rock gardens. It spreads by branching stems and fills in steadily over 2 to 3 years until you have full coverage. Plant it once and it's there for decades. Plant 11. Mazus reptans. Zones 5 to 8. This is the surprising one I mentioned at the start. Most people have never heard of it. Mazus reptans grows flat, less than an inch tall, and spreads aggressively by surface runners into a dense, tight mat. It's one of the few ground covers that can actually handle foot traffic, which makes it perfect between stepping stones, along pathways, or anywhere you're walking through the garden regularly. In late spring, it covers itself in small purple-blue flowers with white and yellow markings. It looks almost like a tiny snapdragon carpet. The University of Minnesota Extension has documented it as particularly effective for filling gaps between pavers, where it crowds out weeds and creates a finished look without any maintenance once established. Plant 12. Hardy geranium, Geranium sanguineum, zones 4 to 8. Not the potted geranium from the nursery. Hardy geranium, also called cranesbill sim, is a completely different plant, and it's one of the best weed suppressors on this list precisely because it doesn't get enough credit. It forms a dense mounding ground cover 12 to 18 inches tall, and it blooms repeatedly from late spring through fall without deadheading. The foliage is deeply cut and turns crimson in autumn. The Chicago Botanic Gardens Plant Evaluation Program has consistently rated it as one of the highest performing perennials for Midwest gardens, specifically for its disease resistance, longevity, and weed-suppressing coverage. It tolerates a wide range of conditions, sun to part shade, dry to average moisture, and once it fills in, it's essentially self-managing. Plant 13. Vinca minor, periwinkle, zones 4 to 9. Vinca has a reputation problem. People think it's boring because it's so common, which means they overlook how effective it actually is. The waxy dark green leaves form a dense, trailing mat that stays looking good 12 months of the year, and the lavender blue spring flowers are genuinely pretty. It's one of the most shade-tolerant ground covers in existence. It handles dry shade, it handles root competition, and it stays at a consistent 4 to 6 inches without any maintenance. Ladybird Johnson Wildflower Centre notes it's particularly valuable in sites where soil disturbance is limited, since its dense coverage prevents weed establishment without tilling or intervention. Check invasive status in your region before planting. It's flagged in some areas. But in most of the country, it's just the most reliable ground cover nobody plants on purpose anymore. Plant 14. Bugleweed, black scallop, Ajuga reptans, zones 3 to 9. Yes, this is an Ajuga, same species as plant 2, different variety. I'm including it separately because the visual impact is completely different, and it's worth calling out on its own. Black scallop has leaves that are almost black, a deep burgundy purple so dark they photograph as near black. The contrast with the electric blue flower spikes in spring is striking enough that people stop and ask about it. It performs identically to standard Ajuga for weed suppression, but looks like a plant you spent real money on. If you're trying to make a practical garden look designed, this is how you do it. Same low maintenance, same aggressive spreading, completely different visual character. Plant 15. Lamb's ear, Stachys byzantina, zones 4 to 8. The last one is lamb's ear, and it earns its spot here because of what it does at the edges. Most ground covers fill in from the centre. Lamb's ear anchors the borders, along paths, along driveways, at the front of a bed where weeds always creep in from the edge. The leaves are thick, silvery, and densely felted, which means they suppress weeds and look architectural at the same time. It thrives in hot, dry, full sun conditions where almost nothing else looks good. Penn State Extension documents it as one of the best front-of-border plants for low-maintenance landscapes, specifically because it stays where you put it and crowds out anything trying to move in alongside it. The silver-grey colour also works as a natural contrast plant. Pair it with deep green Ajuga or bright creeping phlox, and it makes everything around it look more intentional. One last thought before I let you go. These plants work even better in combination than they do alone. Sun area with a slope, pair creeping juniper with creeping phlox. erosion control, and a spring bloom that looks like you planned it. Dry shade under a tree, sweet Woodruff and Epimedium layer well together. One fills the gaps, while the other provides the taller structure. The goal isn't to plant one of these and call it done. It's to build a ground layer across your yard that does the weed suppression for you, so you're spending your time actually enjoying the garden instead of fighting it. If you found this useful, subscribe. New videos every week. And drop a comment telling me which of these you're going to try first, or which problem spot in your yard you're finally going to fix. I read every comment and I respond to everyone. I'll see you in the next one.